So earlier today, we were talking about Gene Simmons. He is fully vaccinated. He got COVID, and he needed a quarantine. And we know that there's mandates coming down to get vaccinated. It's been from the beginning. That
Oscar
push.
De La Hoya last week, remember, he was released from the hospital after being fully vaccinated.
Right. So what we know the science is now, if you get COVID, it doesn't matter if you got a vaccine or you don't have a vaccine. If you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, you're still just as contagious. So why this push? Why is it the unvaccinated people's fault for this pandemic not going away? That just doesn't make sense. And, you know, one of the big arguments is the reason to get vaccine is because the people that are unvaccinated, when they do get it, they get very sick and they're in the hospital. And we know that's still a small number, but it's a big enough number to where it's taking up beds and taking up ICU rooms. So this is a big issue. And so we have Nurse Tracy, who we call him because Tracy is a nurse and listens to the show and will write in. And
he's in the flames.
No doctors will talk to us, but we thank Nurse Tracy for always calling in and having good conversations with us without going political or one side or the other, just trying to talk about the facts. And
that's the thing that we should be focusing on.
This conversation is what came out of that after we talked about, you know, somebody who has COVID and that's been fully vaccinated being just as contagious as somebody who is unvaccinated, and some of the concerns coming from the medical community here, as well as some of the ideologies that are being passed down from our government.
I got vaccinated. Everybody I know did, but a lot of people I work with didn't, and some of them are nurses. Yeah, and everybody has their right to do that, and I accept that.
For now. For now, they do, Nurse Tracy.
Yeah.
I mean, what's going to happen when this California mandate comes down and these people don't want to get vaccinated? Are they going to lose their jobs? I mean, and then what are the hospitals going to do?
It's overtime for Nurse Tracy. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's time and a half.
I'm sure it already has been.
Yeah, I don't want any more overtime. But I think what the point of what the employers, and I get their side too. I mean, I don't work for the bosses. I work for myself as a wage slave. But their point is, you know, you have the right not to get vaccinated, but we also have the right to protect the rest of our crew and our company. And I see both sides. You know, I really do. So I chose to get vaccinated because I don't want to get sick and get my wife and grandkids sick. And at the same time, if I'm running a company like a healthcare company, and I know what the disease can do, and I've seen what happens to people, I got to say, you know, they have the right to make certain demands. No one's making those people work there. So if they refuse the conditions of the job, the employer has the right to can them.
Now, Tracy, you just said you decided to get vaccinated so you didn't get your wife and your kids sick. But people that are vaccinated are getting the virus, and they're still having to quarantine because they can still pass that along, right?
Well, absolutely, that's true. But the thing is, you know, getting sick after you've got the vaccine, your symptoms are almost always, not always, but sometimes you can get really sick. But typically,
right.
Most highest percentage of people have been vaccinated and do still get a breakthrough infection, which, by the way, breakthrough infections are not that common if you look at the stats. But at any rate, you're not going to wind up in the hospital for the most part, and you're almost never going to die. Very slim margin that you're going to die. So the other point is when you are vaccinated and you do get sick and you are able to pass it on, if you're around people who are mostly vaccinated, most of them are just not going to get it. So it's not just that you don't get personally ill, and it's not just that you don't pass it on to your family, is that if everyone around you is vaccinated, they're very unlikely to get it, even if you do get a breakthrough infection, and they're less likely to pass it on to anybody else around them. So
and why is it happening? And you say it's very less likely. I mean, like I said earlier, the sample size is small in San Luis Obispo County. Okay, I'm going to preface what I'm going to say with that. But when we checked a couple weeks ago, the deaths since June, 20% of the deaths, which was not many deaths, there was not that many deaths, but 20% of those deaths, which ended up being like 4 people, were breakthrough cases. That's not enough to give me the you know, if I'm wavering, I'm not going to take a 1 in 5 chance on anything in life. You know?
Well, okay, but four cases out of all the cases we have, you know, hundreds of cases in this area. So 4 cases out of that, and I do understand that, you know, everybody plays with percentages, and, you know, you can say 1% of this population because you're quoting a bigger number, and, you know, we don't have to get out in the weeds with statistics, but the truth is that the studies are there to show that this vaccine works, and that most people, when I say most, I don't know the exact percentage, but most people, when they think of most, the largest percentage of people are not going to become ill at all, and those that do are going to have a mild case. So yes, it's not perfect. It's absolutely not perfect. And
doesn't it frustrate you as a health professional that they're not researching other avenues? They're like, okay, here's your 3 choices. You've got these vaccines you could choose from, and then that's it.
Well, these are the only ones that have so far been researched enough. People think this was developed too quickly. The truth is, this was really started in development on the COVID virus more than 10 years ago. So this is not really done very quickly. It seems that way, and the media always produce. And I hate most media, but media always portrays this at some lightning speed thing. No, that was really what they're talking about was the guy's already rounding third, and we got to home base, and look at that, he got a home run, and it took him just that short run from third. No, the truth is, this is a 10-year process started. And 10 years is actually a pretty short time to develop a huge thing like this. So yes, the actual last leg of this, I would say the part that typically would take another 5 or 10 years, took just a few months. And so that's what makes it seem so dramatically fast.
Is that what makes it? Is that what makes it less effective because maybe it was rushed a little bit, or
no? If you look at the history of vaccines, it's not less effective. It's way more effective than a flu vaccine. The flu vaccine is only about 50 to 60%. Mm-hmm. And if I can take this, and I go into patients' homes because I'm a wound care specialist. I do wound care at home. But a lot of my patients have had COVID and active cases I've been exposed to, and I credit the vaccine in my own care from not getting it. Because if I'm exposed to, how many patients a week, I can't even, a huge number of patients a month, and a significant proportion of them were either exposed themselves or had COVID, and I didn't get it before the vaccine because I was very careful, wore the mask and all the procedures you're supposed to follow. But I credit
Were you taking vitamin D?
I take a ton of different vitamins and supplements. Oh yeah, I take a lot of things.
Let me ask you a question, okay?
I want to talk more about that in a minute because I do. I need to take more supplements.
Let me ask you a question though. When it comes to vaccines versus treatments, you say that the vaccine timeline's like a 10-year timeline, and then that's on the quick side of things. And oftentimes the vaccines aren't even that effective. When you talk about the flu, it's like 50 to 60%. Right. This one seems like it's 90% at the beginning and then wanes to anywhere to 40%, and then you need to get another one. Am I correct?
That's pretty close, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Why not? Why isn't the medical community, and I don't know if it's the same thing, looking at treating the illnesses when they come about? Because it seems as if, though, the stories that you hear of people that are able to get treatments, I'm not going to say what those treatments are, but I think we both know what we're talking about. One won a Nobel Peace Prize in 2015. What is the timeline on those?
Well, that kind of stuff has actually been in works for a long time. Not necessarily. And here's where the confusion comes in. You were going to get these treatments for the COVID-19. Well, yes, but they've been around for a long time or a relatively short time and developed to treat other problems, and now we're investigating them for COVID-19. So this is really a unique virus. And all viruses are unique if you look at it that way, but this is really something that the basis of the COVID is the virus that causes the common cold and other things like that. But this is a unique virus in that it's a mutation, the COVID-19 is. So they are doing testing on different treatments right now. I forget the one that the president took when he was diagnosed, and it really actually helped him. Some people credit that was saving his life. I cannot remember the name of that.
Was it hydrochloroquine or was it ivermectin?
No.
Remdesivir.
No,
Remdesivir.
Yeah, it was remdesivir. Yes, that's what it was. And he got it. He was out. It was basically experimental when he got it. Mm-hmm. So it isn't that people aren't experimenting that. It's just that, and you talk about being frustrated. People blow this stuff up, and you can't say. The most difficult, frustrating thing about any scientific thing is that you almost can never say black and white.
Yeah, right. Everybody wants the quick fix, and I fault our government for this too, because it seems like our government is pushing this quick fix, And it's like, okay, but it's science. You can't have a quick fix when it comes to science and healthcare and medical situations, especially when it's rushed along.
That's absolutely true. So we have to endure failure in order to get to the finish line. That's the bottom line.
But you understand that most of the majority of the populace they're not scientists, and they don't like that. And there's a reason why they did not pursue a career in science, because it's frustrating.
And when you talk about, and I totally agree with you guys on this point, when you talk about government forces, politicians, everybody wants to use that black and white hammer to beat their other guys in so they can look good. And that does nothing but make the population at large angry, upset, and then in the end, they often will give up and choose a course of just anger or acquiescence. And neither one of those is going to get us there. I just, if you look back, there's a really interesting book called The Great Influenza, and I read it a long time ago. But it's about, of course, 1918 flu. It is so bizarre that if you read that book, you'll find out that it is almost like a prophet. Virtually everything in that book happened in 1918 is happening today. It's almost as if someone looked back at that book and said, I'm going to create a new society based on this
I'm pretty
book.
sure, Nurse Tracy, that I remember a movie from the 80s that was pretty much what's happening today. Because every day I wake up, I feel like I'm in that movie. It's the weirdest thing, and it goes all the way back to the Trump administration and how, But let's stay focused here for a second. All right. Now, I have a couple questions about the vaccine. All right.
Sure.
There's 3 vaccines that were available to get in this country. We get the Pfizer, the Johnson & Johnson, and the Moderna. Is there one of those 3 that you would prefer that you would take if you had to do it again?
Well, I actually took Pfizer because it was the first one offered, but I was glad that it was because of the 3, I think the Pfizer is probably, to me at any rate, from my reading, seems to be the most effective. Moderna is good too. It's only marginally less effective, so you probably put them basically on the same plane. The other one that Johnson & Johnson is a one-time shot. It's probably a little, well, not probably, it is statistically a little less effective. But in the end, that difference in effectiveness they're not very far apart. I mean, they're almost all the same.
Okay.
So,
now,
yeah.
and there's obviously the Delta variant, and the vaccines haven't been, the original variant, it seems like the vaccines were 90% or more effective against. The Delta variant, obviously that went down. I thought I read somewhere it was 70 to 74% effective.
Exactly.
And now there's a new variant, and, don't know a lot about it because they haven't put a lot out, but it's called the Mu variant. And what I've heard so far is that these are 0% effective against those. Have you heard anything about this new Mu variant?
I haven't heard about it. I haven't heard that name. I thought it was something else, but that could be it. But there are actually a couple of variants. There's one coming out of India, and then I forget where the other one's coming from. But so far, not enough people that have been vaccinated have been exposed to these new ones to really make any rational statement either way of effectiveness. That's going to take some time. And that's another thing. Taking the time is what makes people so upset. Why does it take so long?
Right.
I understand. I mean, as a wound care nurse, sometimes wounds take a long time to heal, and people get really frustrated. Well, it's the same thing with any other thing in healthcare. If you're sick now. You're not sick 5 years from now, and that's very frustrating to people.
In the meantime.
In the meantime,
what supplements should we be taking?
Any multivitamin is good, but I take a lot of different ones. So it's probably, I lift weights, so I take a lot of protein powder with branched chain amino acids. That's really good for your body. So many things that's good for. And then I take, there's so many I can't even remember really all. But anyway, vitamin C, vitamin D is good for you. But you can overdo any of these, so you got to be careful and just follow the directions.
Okay.
You should get about 90 grams of protein a day, at least as an adult, and believe it or not, good old fashioned water. When I get up in the morning, I drink 8 ounces of water just to hydrate immediately because you lose so much fluid just through your skin and breathing.
And coffee counts, right?
Well, actually, it does, but remember, it is a diuretic.
Jeff just started drinking water in the last year or so.
My doctor says, "Got to drink more water. Got to drink more water." I'm like, "You don't know how much coffee I drink." He's like, "That doesn't count."
Well, I'll take a little exception because I drink probably 20 cups a day.
Well, thanks for having this conversation.
Hey, my pleasure.
We appreciate it. I think a lot of people here, if somebody, if they're not following in line, as we called it earlier, drinking the Kool-Aid, they kind of tune out. They kind of hear what they want to hear. Our concern literally is the way this is being addressed to us more than, about the vaccine or about any other treatment.
The toxic nature in which the message is getting pushed forth. I mean, it's causing the resistance. It really is causing the resistance.
I agree. I have a Facebook page, but I changed it totally, and I put a banner on that says "No politics. Just let's not make it weird." Yeah. So I don't want to do that anymore. I've lost too many friends and family to political issues. What's the point? And let's just. And the frustrating thing about the way governments put information out is that they always do it with a political bent to make one side look better than the other. In the end, they all look like idiots.
Right. And if we subscribe to it and treat it as our MO, we look like idiots too because we're not getting along with each other, and that's a problem.
That is a problem. I posted a thing on there just to look at because I on 9/11 I'm not one of these guys that just grinds his guts on 9/11, but in truth, that was, I think, the last time the Americans ever felt unified. And not that I would want to go back to those days. It's just that that's the time when I felt like every American everywhere was my brother or sister, which sounds corny, but that's...
I mean, I think we heard a lot of that over the weekend, I think that, and I think a lot of people would like to go back there because, man, we've been divided ever since.
It's so crazy. I mean... It's okay to disagree with me. You don't have to hate me. I don't have to hate you. It's okay to disagree.
Subscribe to the Jeff and Jeremy podcast now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and YouTube. It's your Central Coast commute-friendly podcast.